we always try to build a complete triathlete in one sport, a complete athlete. They just flat out don't swim enough. We swim a lot because I like to build complete total athletes who are ready for everything. But as you just said, people who moan and groan about slower bikes and slower runs and why they can't bond together, hey, how much are you swimming and what are you doing when you swim? Because it is all about energy management.
All right, man.
Happy Monday. Today is March 9th, 2020. Welcome aboard the Crushing Iron Podcast.
Good to be here. Happy daylight savings,
Oh, dude,
Crunk.
brutal, dude. Like,
Shit, I am
yesterday,
wiped.
I know, dude, I was thinking about you this morning and even well, obviously myself, because people are just selfish, but yesterday we woke up at 6:30 and, 6:30, which used to be 5:30. And Hayden was still asleep in his own bed, and I thought, this is just another great example of like how you know how you feel, but then as soon as you look at anything that you usually like use to equate to how you should feel, like already just stirs the pot. And that's why I'm like, man, I feel really good. Like Hayden's still in his bed, like I feel super rested. And then I looked at the clock and it was 6:30, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't had this kind of sleep in forever. And then I was like, oh, dude, it's 5:30. It's daylight saving times. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I missed an hour of sleep. And it was like, I felt great. And then I was like, wait a minute, I just lost an hour. But yeah, it's a total worthless change in my opinion. I was really enjoying it getting like lighter earlier. I know that most people are a huge fan of it, staying light later, and I'm in that boat too. But I like it being light early. I mean, I know it doesn't really affect you because you're usually up when the sun's already been up for a little bit, but I like getting up and having the sunlight hit me early. And this morning it was like 7:15. It was like bare 7:20, and it was barely even like the sun hadn't even come across the mountain. But hey, I digress. We'll talk about bigger and more beautiful things today than what is the worst decision in America, which is daylight savings time. But yeah, welcome aboard, Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 354. We come to you
Oh,
twice a
man.
week for the last 3 years, traditionally Mondays and Thursdays as we are today, but we appreciate you tuning in. We cover all things life, training, triathlon, how they complement each other, how they intersect, how they affect us both as athletes and just people. Hanging out on planet Earth where everybody wants to panic about everything. That is our life, and that is the burden that we carry.
Are people panicking about everything again?
I don't know. It's just, I mean, we're not going to go into it today because I'm sure there are plenty of people that listen to this podcast that are probably like to panic too. But hey, you know what?
Come on, we got to play our part, dude.
I know. I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it.
You're not going there, huh?
No, I'm not participating in it. I'm not. I'm not participating in it. Um, not. It is almost March Madness, which we both find really enjoyable. You get much more into it than I do, so we've been on a little bit of a hiatus from talking about team sports and our love of college basketball in the last few weeks, and that's probably been to the excitement of many of our listeners. But hey, over the next few weeks, the whole country gets behind March Madness, and I have a feeling with everybody else basically hunkering themselves inside their houses and quarantining their own selves, that March Madness is going to have a whole new record in terms of viewership over the next 3 weeks. So that'll be fun and exciting. But hey,
Yeah.
good luck to your Badgers. There's basically no shot at all unless my Tennessee Vols will win the SEC championship that we're going to get a bid. So, hey, but I still have fun watching and will appreciate all the fun and excitement that is March Madness.
You guys aren't even bid worthy right now?
I don't think we're bid worthy, man. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. It's all right, man. But
I am back in 100%.
yeah, I know you're back in, dude. You're like the biggest hot, cold college basketball fan I've ever met in my entire life. Like
I'm the biggest
not
hot
only
cold
not only do
everything
you
fan.
not only do you give up, but you're like, I'm just getting rid of cable. You're the guy that goes like you're the guy that's buying toilet paper at Costco right now. You go the one in this direction. You're like, forget happy mediums. I'm just not going to be totally bought into college basketball right now, and I'm still going to hang tough. I'm not just going to be like totally all in. You're like, you know what, man? Like, I decided I'm giving up on basketball. I'm cutting out my cable. I've already taken all my Wisconsin stuff and I've given it to Goodwill, and I deflated all the basketballs downstairs, so I won't be tempted to play any hoops. I'm done. And then 2 weeks later, you'll like text me at 10:30, be like, "Dude, you see the Badgers?" I'm like, "No, I didn't see the Badgers." First of all, I'm asleep. But I know you're all in, and I'll cheer for them via you. But hey, hey,
Hey, man.
I know. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No,
Go
but
ahead. Go ahead.
it's been a hell of a year, man.
I know. And then in like 2 weeks, when you guys get upset in like the round of 32, you're gonna be like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing it again. Next year, I'm not doing it again. I always get bought in. I get sunk in. I travel to Indianapolis. I watch these games, and then they end up disappointing me. And I put so much effort into it. And I invest so much time and energy into it, and all my emotions. I mean, it sucks the life out of me, man. I just can't do it anymore.
I think, man, I think you're
And then
taking
you
a
do it
shot
again.
at me right now.
Not saying like you do it every March and every what November, December, like when they play football. But hey,
You'd think I
that's
would learn,
you would
based on.
you would learn. But hey, we're humans. We have a hard time grasping even
Hey,
just the
that's
most.
that's a big part of this podcast is that vulnerability. But I keep searching for that because I do feel a lot of times that, that it is a waste of time to watch a lot of sports. I mean, I grew up watching a lot of sports, and I've kind of weaned it down to just Badgers basically, and even still, that feels like a little bit of I don't know, out of balance sometimes. So I get
Mhm.
it, but I think like you said, we're human, and there's things like that that have to be, not have to be, but it's just gonna be out of balance. I heard a podcast yesterday I was listening to, and this guy was describing like I think he was talking about mood swings in general, and or
Mhm.
like positive stuff and negative stuff, and it occurred to him that if you're going real positive one way, it's it's like driving a car. It's impossible to like turn the direction around 180 without
Mhm.
going through neutral.
Yep.
And I really found that a good analogy because like if you're coming back and you're coming off a high or whatever, and you feel like you're going in, just try to find out a way to hang out in neutral a little bit before you make that next decision. It's kind of like the middle way in Buddhism or Zen. But
Never get too high and never get too low. I mean,
and
that's
that
just. I mean, if you do that, then you don't have to worry about the fall. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. That might be a darker way to look at it, but some people give me a hard time for not being more excited about things. But hey, I like to keep things even keel. I think it's a safe, comfortable zone for me. But hey, it's triathlon season, people, and we're excited to talk about it. I'm excited. We had a great weekend. We had one of those just super awesome weekends with the team and athletes racing and having just everybody did well, which is always fun as a coach. And then I always get kind of giddy and excited, like it's my own March Madness and like I guess spring training, if you will, for you baseball fans. With like the first like big 70.3 Ironman event is this weekend for one of our athletes, and I just kind of gets my juices flowing. I get super excited, and I'm going to say this, and I want to be held accountable on Monday. Okay.
yeah,
My goal for this year, for on Sundays, because it's a family day, is to not check Iron Track until a race has been going on for at least 3 hours.
ooh,
Which that is a bold statement and something that I have failed miserably at over basically the last 10 years. That I will check the swim, I'll check the swim splits, I'll check transition, I'll check bike splits, refresh, mile, and then and then I have to remind myself as a coach and as an athlete, like, dude, none of this matters. None of it. Zero. None of it matters until you get to the run. So why even tune in? It's like people who like to watch NASCAR. Like, why are you even tuning in to the last 5 laps? That's where all the fun stuff happens. So that's basically it. I'm gonna try my best to disengage because the outcome is gonna be the outcome, and I'm not gonna have any control over it. So I can just sit back and not worry about things, and I'm not gonna tune in until 11 o'clock on Sunday. It'll be like a 7, 8, or 8 a.m. start. So this gentleman should be on the run by then, and that's when I'm going to check in and see how things are going. So I want to be held accountable on Monday. I want you to hold me accountable for it, and I'll be honest with you if I succeeded or if I failed miserably.
yeah. But don't you want the relief to know that they're off the bike or out of the water?
No, well, I'm not
Yeah.
worried about
So,
this gentleman getting out of the water. I mean, I don't really have any worries about our people getting out of the water. But the thing is like I'm just if I do it and I get in early, I'm just gonna keep refreshing and keep obsessing about it. What's gonna happen? Or because and we know this from being like on site of so many races is that oftentimes too, like the iron tracker is just like totally way off. Like you see a really fast split and you think, oh my God, they're crushing it today, or are they going out too fast? And then the next split's like, 2 miles long and the average 14, 30-minute miles. You're like, oh my gosh, our day's finished. But the reality is they just had the timing mats set up at incorrect distances. And that's what it spits out on Iron Track. Or it gets delayed and you're thinking, or they missed a split and they're like, oh my gosh, something did happen. Then you take yourself down this huge rabbit hole of like, I wonder what happened, I wonder if they're in a bike wreck, I wonder if they got a flat tire, I wonder if they're okay. And then 30 minutes later, bam, ding ding ding, like 5 alerts come in and you're like, oh, they're totally just fine. I spent the last 30 minutes going down this huge rabbit hole of what could have happened and everything was fine. So I'm just trying to participate, being in the moment, staying present, understanding they don't have any control, and we'll tune in when the run starts. And I have zero faith I'm going to do this, but I'm going to try my hardest.
uh, I'll see what I can do to help you.
All right, thank you.
Not so
You got a
level.
topic for us today or an outline? I mean, we can probably get into it since we've already wasted the first 10 minutes of this podcast.
Yeah. Little warm up. Yeah, if you want to go into this, you sent out an article. I guess it was last week sometime,
Yeah, I think
maybe.
it was Thursday or Friday. Yeah, Thursday or Friday. I sent one out to our closed group. Yep.
And you called it a must read, I believe.
It is a must read. Yep.
And
I thought it was a
since
must read.
since you said that, and since I read it and agreed,
Yeah.
I
And
decided
let's
that
be
I think
honest, when I say it's a must read, you don't ever really read it. But the fact that you did read this is it says a lot. So I'm just pumped that you actually read it.
well, you say when you say must read, I go and
If
it
I
says,
say,
oh, this is a pretty
hey,
good
it's a
read.
good
It's
read
pretty
or
good.
it's a fun read, you're like, pass. I'll just let Robbie
I don't know.
lead.
You'd be
No,
surprised. You'd be surprised.
I would be surprised. You're right. But the article, and this is also kind of, well, which is even more shocking, is it was an article from a triathlon magazine, which
I know.
they rarely put out anything that you would want to read like a sentence of. But it was, I tend to anything that Dan Lorang says, I tend to listen, or I tend to want to pay attention to, or at least give it, some kind of, you know, just give us pay my due diligence and read it. And so it was a 220 triathlon, which I guess is the name of the magazine, and it was an article on Frodeno and Haug's coach Dan Lorang on how to train for Ironman, which the title kind of like turned me off a little bit. I was like, this is how you do it, because usually when triathlete magazines are put out these are the 5 workouts you must do, and it's like you have to do a 3 hour ride and a 1 hour run and a 3 hour ride and a 1 hour run and a 3 hour ride and a 1 hour run, and that's how you're going to get prepared. Like no one has time for that. But I started reading it and I was like, oh look, consistency is key is the first headline. Buying in. Second one, listen to your body. Buying in again. Number 3, manage your strengths and weaknesses. Buying in again. Establish training phases. Buying in again. I'm all in right now. Manage the move to Ironman, which I thought was interesting. Balance in and outdoor riding. I'm like, hey, way to cheat and steal like the last 10 of our podcasts. Ray Sharp, temper nutritional extremes, which I'm a huge fan of, and then develop your own tri psychology. He said a lot of things in here that I thought that was great, and then also a lot of quotes from the last 2 champions, which was if you're not familiar with or you don't track the professional field in professional racing with Ironman 70.3 distance. This was the very first time ever that a single coach has had 2 athletes win the Kona World Championships, which I think says just obviously a lot about him. But the most fascinating thing, and as a coach, I like this is never said enough, is that if you read through it, says Lorang has coached Frodeno for 7 years, and Haug or Haug, however you want to say it, or however she says it, for 15 years. 7 years and 15 years. Most people haven't even been in any relationship that long. And as a coach, And it, like, going back and reading through, like, I think one of the best, his quote here, which spoke a lot to me, and I'll dive in a minute, is he said, his biggest ability is to slow me down, something that no one before has ever done. This enabled me to get consistency, and not just amazing training days, but actually okay days and good weeks that make very good months and great years. This is one of the most, again, understated and not talked about, like, phenomenons in triathlon and coaching, is that triathletes in general want everything done right now. And I see this as a coach. I work with, obviously, a million types of athletes who have different personality types, different athletic goals, different backgrounds. Everyone wants to know why, even if they're improving, why aren't they improving at a faster rate? And then I work with a lot of athletes who have had different coaches in the past, and you get inquiries like that from people who have other coaches. Everyone wants a quick fix. And if you're a person or you're an athlete who bounces around from coach to coach every single year, every 2 years, it's not the coach's fault. It's yours, because you're not being patient enough. If you really, really want to succeed, and you really, really, really want to buy in to a coach or a training style or a method, you have to be bought in. And what I appreciate so much about Dan Lorang and everything that he said in here was that he is in it for the long haul. And that's a scary thing for a coach to do, especially any coach. I mean, for him, it's probably nothing, because now everyone wants to be coached by him. And he actually helps with a lot of professional cycling teams. He's just a brilliant person, a huge scientific background, and obviously knows what he's doing. But the thing with him is that and if you're reading through the whole thing, I'm sure you have some topics and some quotes in here that's to you as well. But is, as a coach, and if you do this full time, and it is, as a result, it is your quote unquote business. When you tell someone, I can't guarantee you this is going to happen today, or it's going to happen in 6 months, and in fact, I really can't tell you when it's going to happen, and you basically give them unknowns, because I get this question all the time from prospective athletes. What do you think we can do in 6 months? Guess what? I have zero idea. None. People hate hearing that. But if you are working with a coach, or you're looking for a coach, and they tell you, oh, we can definitely do this, then they're full of crap, because no one knows. But if you want to buy in and you want to be consistent, then you want to be with a coach who is obsessed with the long haul, the long term. What he said about making, actually okay days into good weeks that make very good months and great years. And that is something that most triathletes struggle with, is just that simple thing about patience. Patience, patience, patience. And I think that, we all need to have more of it. And as a coach, I see it all the time. The athletes that have the most patience are usually the ones that are the most successful in getting as much out of themselves as they possibly can. They're kinder to themselves. They're more patient with the process. They see bigger gains. But if you're an athlete out there and you've had a coach, or you've gone from, 2 or 3 or 4 different coaches in 4 years, it's not really about you not finding a coach that's right for you. And it might be one. I mean, it's a coach-athlete relationship, just like any other relationship. There's good fits and there's bad fits. But you have to be patient enough to actually think about this. And am I going to be patient enough to stick with this and actually see it all the way through, and not just stop? And I think that's something that every athlete needs to know, and every athlete needs to hear.
Mm. Well, I actually pulled that quote too, and but I can also identify with. I understand why people don't have patience sometimes. I wonder too if, like, the very nature of Ironman in its definition. I wonder how many people actually get into the sport initially to say, "Hey, I want to do an Ironman," and it becomes sort of a bucket list thing from the beginning. And
Mm.
I want to get this done and see what happens, and so they kind of go at it from that perspective, and they're looking at, I think a lot of people, including me, sometimes just look at it sort of year to year versus the long term. And I suppose that the natural progression is that maybe you do get in it for a bucket list, and maybe it goes terrible and you decide to get out. But then it's like, man, that went pretty good. I kind of like this, kind of like being around it. And then you sort of finagle. It's sort of like, investing when you're younger. You you want to make it real quick, but if the real plan should be the long term, just keep going, keep consistent, and then it pays off in the long run. But it takes a while, I suppose, for people to rationalize or see the long-term perspective in this sport versus like I just did a race and then I didn't do anything for 6 months or 3 months afterwards, and then you want to pick it back up again and because 9 months it seems like a long time, but if you're talking about looking at it from a yearly perspective, a long term, like a collection of years, that's just hard to do, I think, for a lot of people. And
Well,
that's a challenge of life, as you pointed out many times.
it is, and I think that's a really great point. Is that a lot of athletes, because we all have different phases and different definitions of success, and a lot of athletes feel some type of early, what they would consider at this moment, early success, and they were able to complete races, they were able to finish things, and they're able to get things to where they want them from a time standpoint. Because I mean, if you hop into the sport really early, and you see this all the time, that and first of all, everyone goes through peaks and valleys and plateaus. Everyone does. It always happens. And they get in the sport, they're getting fit, and they're doing these things, they're doing things right, they may be doing things wrong, but they're still getting fit, they're still getting faster, still feeling better, maybe even losing weight, but they're generally just not being sedentary anymore, they're picking things up, and they're doing all this at a rapid rate, and they succeed, and they finish 70.3, they finish their Ironman, they finish their Olympic sprint, whatever they're doing, like, oh, this feels great, I can't believe I was able to do this. Now you have this like euphoric feeling of getting so high and so pumped up, you're like, oh, the sky's the limit, baby, next year I'm going to crush it again. And then because you haven't gone through, you haven't been in the sport long enough to have plateaus and to have times where things go down or things that are going to start trending a different way. Then you have to troubleshoot. Then you're thinking, ah, now I'm stuck. I got to find a coach to fix this for me. And then you have someone that you start working with, and they're like, okay, well, I like to work. This is what I say. I like to work with people that are in this for the long term. I like to go day to day, week to week, month to month. I can't promise you anything, but what I will tell you is if we're really consistent and we work hard and we stay healthy and we stay happy, then we're more than likely going to get to a really, really good place. Because you field all those different kinds of questions to coach, like I want to finish higher, or I think I'm capable more, and it's a interesting. Being a coach is just as a very interesting occupation, in that people come to you always wanting more. They want to get faster. They want things to be. They want their schedule to be, planned out for them. They want to squeeze out more ability or performance out of what they think they're already doing or doing in a different way. And so you're always kind of under the microscope as a coach, because athletes always want more. It's just how they're wired. They always want to go better. They always want to go faster. They always want to go longer. They always want to see the results every day or every week or every race. And that's just not possible. No athlete PRs every race if you race enough and you're in this game long enough. But I think obviously consistency is key, but in that uh, in his first line here into this article, and we'll link this in the show notes, is consistency is imperative in training, but also in the relationship with the athlete. That means working for long-term results, which don't happen in the same year or the year after, but even 3 or 4 years ahead. This gives us time to know each other, develop, and get the best out of it. That is such a huge thing for people to wrap their brains around. And this is coming from, again, if you want to scale this, this is coming from a coach who has their athlete training, some weeks probably 25 to 30 to 35 hours a week. That much more information. So their process is sped up. And the fact that he's been with them for 7 to 15 years, I think it isn't, it's no, it's not a coincidence that they were that successful, and he's one of the best athletes in the world. There's a lot of coaches out there who have been with their athletes for a long period of time, and you see a lot of athletes who change things every 2 seconds, and because they're impatient, or, and I'm just going to say this, either they're super impatient, or it's always more convenient to blame someone else than to take responsibility for being impatient or any kind of shortcomings you have, because coaches get blamed a lot for not doing things right or not having enough um, variety in their training or not doing this. But a lot of times they're just being patient, and understanding that anything that's going to become something really, really good requires patience and requires consistency, and you have to be totally bought in. You can't just do it halfway and then expect to get a full ways response of how you thought things were going to go if you're only going to put halfway in. if you're only going to go halfway, and you can't expect to get the full out.
Mm-hmm. That kind of goes in the second one was listen to your body. And the thing I pulled out of this was with distance coaching, there's a responsibility of the athlete to listen to their body and give good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And that is especially true because they're not with each other, right, all the time. I think that
No,
was
they're done. They're not
so
with, yeah.
they're doing this from distance. So
Mhm.
in your case and in my case with working with athletes, it's important to get that for the body or the athlete to really understand their body and be able to give good feedback that matters because that's what you're looking for. Um, you have to have that, and it has to be accurate and honest. I think that's a really big part of it, right?
It
Um,
has to be honest, but you have to have that. And again, it's one of those things where you have to. An athlete has to trust their coach that they're going to read it and they're going to listen, and then the coach has to make sure that they respond in a way that's positive and making sure that the athlete knows that this is all about communicating. This is all about making sure that things are correct. Like I had I'll just like this is a great example. I had an athlete who left a comment on a Thursday of last week and was like, "Hey, I really feel kind of run down today. I really feel like my legs are tired. I just don't have anything." And so I sent her a message and said, well, I'm probably going to change Friday up. I think I had a hard swim and a run, and I removed both of those and put in a very easy swim, and that was it. And after that Friday swim, this athlete said, "Good workout and getting stronger at the pool only workout, so that's good." I'll be honest, I wasn't happy that you switched workouts around today. I feel like I was failing at being able to do the load you wanted me to do. But I'm also smart enough to know it isn't a failure. It's about the bigger long-term picture. Now my legs will be ready for the hard bike workout tomorrow. I'm slowly learning. Sometimes I just have to talk myself out of the ledge. And my response to that was, load management is my job. If it's too much, that's my fault, not yours. Because that is it is a as 100% on the coach. If it's about load management. If you give an athlete too much, that's the coach's fault. It's not the athlete's fault for not handling it. It's the coach's fault, and we should take responsibility for that. Every coach take responsibility for that. But you can't know all the time, regardless of what numbers say, because athletes can be so stubborn and so type A that they'll never do anything or say anything until they're already like way past overtrained. You got to ask them how things are going if you're not getting enough feedback, or they have to just say, hey, I'm really tired today. Okay, well then let's change things up and let's make sure we don't dig ourselves all. You have to be able to communicate those, and you have to know that your coach is going to receive that in a way that is not a negative or a because I think a lot of coaches probably take things way too personal in terms of I can't handle this or I don't think it's right, like they're getting their expertise is being threatened. Well, the fact of the matter is that you're coaching a specific athlete, and if you prescribe a load for them to handle, you think they can handle it. You project they can handle based on what else they've done and how their life is going. But if they can't, then you just adjust it because life happens and people's bodies change and they adapt different ways. They can handle it. It's not a negative, but you have to know those things and you have to be able to read those things. All right, well, if that's too much, we need to scale back and do a little bit less because you ultimately want like load management is to get the most out of your athlete with the littlest, the smallest dose, the least you can do to make the maximum result. That's what you want. You don't want to do, if a prescription says take, 200 milligrams, you don't want to take 1,000 because more is better. You want to take 200. And so I think that that's something that most athletes probably struggle with in that communication is that if they have a coach, they probably don't communicate enough in terms of how they felt after every workout. Or if they're self-coached, it's even harder to kind of sift through the feelings and navigate those mental and emotional critical thoughts that are saying, you know what, you have to do more. Look at this training plan that I've purchased online. It's expecting me to do this, so I have to do it. And then
yeah.
you dig yourself into a massive hole. You have to listen to your body, and as a coach, you always have to defer to your athlete. Always, 100% defer to your athlete. If you don't feel good today, then scrap it. Scrap it.
Yeah,
Don't
no,
just
I
go out,
have.
suck it up, and do it. I hate that.
Yeah, that was my question actually. Is I know that I'm sure you communicate this to athletes, and from that previous example, it sounds like that was a day ahead decision. or was it the morning of? But because what
It
my
was it
thought
was
is,
day before. Yeah, so like it was that was a Friday conversation, but what led to that was they had an easy ride on a Thursday, and this athlete said heavy legs today. I also had some trainer issues, so I got it done. So I didn't just look at that one. They also had a run that day, and she said legs are just toast. I had nothing in them, and so I just responded with, this was on Thursday. I said I'm changing up tomorrow. So this is Thursday or March 5th at 12:58 p.m. And
okay,
so I changed her next day and made it into just an easy swim with all pull to give her legs a rest, but still flushing things out, not giving a total day off. Because that's a sign that an athlete just needs their legs a little bit of rest. I know what she had coming up this weekend, and they were going to be difficult. And so but if they had said something like, I'm coming down with a cold or I'm super tired and fatigued, like that's again where you have to know the athlete's like total overall circumstance to make the appropriate adjustment. Because it could have been, let's see how we feel tomorrow, or it could have been just a let's take tomorrow totally off because I think you're going to need that much recovery.
yeah. Well, my question is going to be more like, I'm sure that obviously you communicate and give the green light to, okay, I didn't feel, like if it was maybe not as blatant, but there was like about that run and workout on Thursday, and I'm gonna get up tomorrow and see how it goes. And then when I get there, it says intervals in the hard swim workout. I mean, for them to make their own decision about, hey, I'm just gonna make this easy, and then kind of post mortem tell you what was up. Because I think those are important. That's sort of like how I approach things is because I don't know sometimes. That's what I mean. Like sometimes I feel like my body can be misleading. Obviously, that was a case of clarity, but you know what I mean. Like sometimes there's going to be, I didn't really feel it today, and then that maybe a good night's sleep just kind of puts that all under the rug or something like that, and then you go into the next day. So it's like, that's why because sometimes I just don't know. Like we've talked about it many times how you can go out and feel like, ah man, I don't feel it today, and then it turns out to be the best run of your week.
Mm-hmm.
So those are fine lines where it's interesting to me, and that's why I'm always a big advocate of just getting there and sort of like starting out and seeing how things feel, because things do seem to change within this sport pretty fast. Um, uh, you know, I just those are all the gray areas that kind of just give me curiosity, I guess, is that.
Well, you always you always hope you have athletes that can make. Not everyone can because they're either too stubborn, they're too prideful, or they just haven't really gotten to learning and reading their body yet. Is that you always want um, athletes that can say, hey, and again, that's also why I find it even more helpful and positive to prescribe effort-based sessions, especially with running,
Mm,
because if I say go out and do, an easy run, well, my easy today might feel like 10:30s, but my easy 5 days ago might have felt like 8:50s. So I'm actually able to still complete this session exactly how you wanted. And so two very positive things happen. I want you to run a zone 2 run, which is, easy all day moderate pace. And the day you run it at, like I said, 10:30s, but you usually run them in the high 8s, low 9s. And I know if you wear a heart rate monitor, I know what that heart rate usually gets for that pace. And let's say you run, those 10:30s, you're still completing it, completing the run as prescribed. You're still getting good work in. You slowed down, which is a good thing. You listen to your body, so you were still able to check that box saying, I got the work in just as coach wanted it. I gave easy, moderate effort today. But as a coach, you look at that and you think, okay, well, I'm used to seeing high 8s, low 9s. This was a 10:30. Something's up. If they haven't communicated with you enough, then you have to look a little bit harder and say, all right, well, 10:30s today, higher heart rate. They're struggling really, really high. The heart rate's elevated. Something else is going on. They're either really stressed or they're getting poor sleep, or they're digging themselves a hole. So we need to peel back the onion a little bit and see what's happening. Then you have to ask questions. But some methods like, hey, this was supposed to be a zone 2 run. I treated it more like a zone 1 run. I still wanted to get the time in. I just took it really, really easy, but my heart rate was really elevated. Okay, well, are you low on sleep? Are you, just have a lot of coffee? How were things? Like that's information that you need because that will help you dictate how the next few days need to look like, not the next month, because things are going to totally change. It's just a good way to kind of keep, because like if I click on an athlete, I have not an expectation, I just have a knowledge based on paying attention of around where I think an athlete probably is going to end up pace wise if they were heart rate, or the correlation is going to be between the two. But you have to always pay attention and know that with your athletes, because if you don't, then you might just look at one session a week and be like, okay, well, this was bad or this was good. But you have to look at the whole thing, and that's how things are connected, and that's how things affect each other. But you have to make those decisions in real time. I've never gotten on an athlete, and nor should any self-coached athlete say, man, I went to the pool today, I know it was supposed to be a hard swim, but I just feel like I was coming down with something and I had to take a little in my throat, so I should have 2K easy and got out. Guess what? Round of applause, standing ovation. Thank you for paying attention to your body. Thank you for making a long-term decision under short-term notice. Those are the kind of decisions that you want athletes to have, that they feel empowered, not just to make decisions for themselves, but they also feel supported. That you're not going to, slap them on the hand with a ruler, like, why didn't you get the full interval setting today? You got to do this. No, you don't. You're training a program, or you're training a race expectation. You're not working with a person who is also an athlete. And those are just two very important things. So athletes always need to feel empowered and supported to make these decisions, that their coach is going to support that and encourage those type of in-game decisions. Because guess what? On race day, you have to listen to your body, because your coach isn't going to be inside your heart or inside your leg knowing exactly what you can do that day. Only you are. So you have to make the decision to either throttle forward or throttle back, or wait a little bit or keep going. Those are decisions you have to make, but you have to have practice making them and feeling confident that you're making the best decisions.
I have a quick question within this. When you say zone two, do you what would you prefer? Like zone creeping in towards zone three, or you want it all zone two and below?
I want everything low zone 2 and only high zone 2 if you're going on a hill. Like
Okay.
that's like another like thing we've talked about before is, like, use cycling for an example. Like if your zone 2 range is like 160 watts to 180 watts, well, most athletes, especially guys, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna cruise at like 179. I'm gonna do the top version of this."
Hmm.
Well, let's say this. Let's say you're having a day where you're really struggling. Your heart rate's elevated. You're 179 watts. It may be taking out of you a 185 effort or 190 effort to put out, because you're so fatigued, but you got to stick it anyway. So you're more likely in a zone 3 effort, so it's going to wipe you out more. Where you could get the same stimulus and response from just hanging out in like the mid 160s to high 160s, and get a much better return on investment and huge bang for your buck. Like that's just another symptom of society and training, is that I have to go faster and I have to go harder. Minimal effective dose. Look at what's going to get the maximum out of your body for the maximum out of your body, the least amount of investment. It's not about doing 30 hours of training to do your best time. It's about getting your best time on the minimal hours. That's not like that's not something you should feel bad about. It's called efficiency, and it's called knowing your body, and it's called being healthy and paying attention, understanding that more isn't always better. It's about what's appropriate, and that's what being appropriate is. Okay, well, if coach says zone 2, then why not why not do zone 2? If he wanted me, or if the game plan said, well, you need to do low zone 2 for half and high zone 2 for the rest, or zone 3, then he'd probably tell me, because he wants a different response. But what he's saying is zone 2, and zone 2 is a wide range. So listen to it and start low. Like if you want to pick it up a little bit towards the end, pick it up for a little bit. If not, just stay the course. Minimal effective dose. Start low and I mean, that's with all things in life. Like you want to invest. It's like, oh, well, I'm gonna go to the training and fitness casino, and I'm probably gonna try to, I don't know, my max is probably like, I don't know, 5,000. So once I get to $5,000 and I've lost all that, then I'm probably gonna call it a night. I'd rather work my way smart with $100, hit the blackjack table, see what I can do, maybe bump it up, win 500, 600, 700. As soon as I lose a hand down to 500, I'm gonna cash out, buy a seat later. It's all about minimal effective dose and being smart and playing the long game, because No one has ever made a poor decision by going a little bit slower or dialing things a little bit back. They've always made poor decisions by dialing things a little too much forward or doing that famous saying, I had to go fast today, coach. Man, my legs were just feeling it today, coach. I had to go fast. I'm like, stop it with that. Your legs don't talk to you, okay? Your mind and your ego do. Slow it down, relax, do what's appropriate.
You want to talk about managed strengths and weaknesses for a second here?
Always.
Okay,
It
cool.
says we all, yeah, I mean, I
I
love
took
this line. Go
which
ahead. You
ones?
take notes. No, you go ahead. Go ahead. No, after you. No, after you.
um, well, I just wrote down a couple of things. It says we want to build a complete triathlete that can react to any race scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And Ironman is about energy management, which I've heard you say many, many times. And also,
100%.
triathlon is one sport.
Thank you, Preach.
So, yeah, I mean, they talk about it in terms of, the pointy edge with the trying to win the race, but I can't remember if it was Jan but they said if you're behind in the swim, it takes more energy on the bike to catch up, which in turn affects your run. So you have to
It's
be strong on across the board.
we always try to build a complete triathlete. A complete triathlete in one sport, not just being a swimmer or being a cyclist or being a runner. They try to a complete athlete. And you see, like, obviously, we would all guess this, and I've said it a million times, but it's so true. It almost probably always be true. Is that people just skimp on the swim. They just skimp on the swim. They just flat out don't swim enough. We swim a lot because I like to build complete, total athletes who are ready for everything. But as you just said, people who moan and groan about slower bikes and slower runs and why they can't all together. Hey, how much are you swimming and what are you doing when you swim? Because it is all about energy management and energy expenditure. And if you are tapping out your resources in the swim, then don't expect the same results in training. So many athletes' days are ruined, or their calculations or expectations are shot because they thought, oh, well, the swim's only 1.2, or it's only a mile, or it's only 2.4. I can make that up. Really? You can make it up? How? Oh, I know how. By going harder than you should be and going over the pace and the effort you probably should be to make up that quote unquote time. Or you could do is work to be a complete triathlete. You signed up for a triathlon to participate in an event that is one sport. So work hard to be that. Don't just be lazy about it. I see it as a coach. I see, it's a swim. It's not that big. Yes, it is. Go swim. I mean, it's if you want to be a duathlete, then sign up for a duathlete. Like, if you want to be a triathlete, then go swim. And if you don't, then don't have any excuses and don't expect for your lack of swim effort or lack of swim training or the fact that you go to the pool once a week or max twice a week and you never make it past 2000, and when you do, all you're doing is swimming straight and slow and you're counting that as your long day 1 hour swim. Don't expect to get better. If you're not doing 25s, 50s, 100s, and you're doing them hard, you're swimming longer, and you're working on, because most people that's where they come into the sport with like the least amount of experience. So it's going to take the most amount of work. You start it with that. No one likes to start their day crappy. No one. They like to start it strong. They can start it feeling good. It's like, oh, I can probably go with, like, 3 hours sleep. I can make up for it. No, you can't. You're gonna have a terrible day. So if you don't do the swim training, it's gonna be affected the same way. Same thing about maximizing your strengths and managing your weaknesses. You can't just totally give up on one, because then it's no longer going to be your strength. You're just going to have two, three, three mediocre ones. So I think that you need to focus on being a complete athlete and enjoy that process of it. Enjoy trying to be really, really well rounded, because as a coach, what it does, it just gives you more opportunity to succeed, to see more progress, right? You always want to see progress. And swimming is like the one where people, if they would just put in just an ounce of hard work, like once a week in an extra session, they would see huge gains. Like, and that's all we want. We put so much time and effort into this sport. That's three disciplines, but one event, that you're always looking for ways to improve. So, like, give yourself another opportunity to see improvement and then have that cascade effect of, oh, I am getting better. This is great. And my swim is now affecting my bikes, and I'm getting on the bike fresh versus getting on the bike, tore up. Like that's how it should be. It shouldn't be a struggle.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm the guy that does that sometimes. I get it, you know. Um, the swim is always that elephant in the room, man, and people just it's like you look at that course and you're kind of like, well, I can get through that or whatever. It's like, no, but you're right. I love what you said about nobody wants to start the day wrong, and I can honestly say that most people I've talked to that are triathletes have had that terrible swim experience, and it's
Hmm.
very common. It's the adrenaline, it's the anxiety, it's the whole 9 yards. But when you take that piece of I love what you say too about swim. The swim should be uneventful,
Yep.
and how amazing that would feel is if you got in there with confidence and just kind of went through it and swam strong and solid and just got out, and then I was like, okay, I don't even feel like that really even happened. That's happened to me a couple times, and it's an amazing feeling. So I don't, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and like you said, that's most people's unfamiliarity place, growing up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's one of those things that takes a lot of work to get up to speed,
Literally.
literally. And there's a lot of improvement, but it's one of those improvements that just doesn't seem like a lot sometimes. So you have to rationalize that. We talk about like saving seconds in 100 or something like that. But I always talk to people about how did you feel when you got out? Did you feel good and strong, or did you feel absolutely caked? You
Hmm.
know, that to me is how you see the swim improvement, and that's very difficult to see sometimes unless you're really paying attention.
Always got to pay attention, man. Always got to pay attention.
Always got to pay attention. Yeah. Do you want to talk about training phases?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairly quick, and we talked about it before, but said like you have, we talked about we had questions, about periodization, and I think there's you should go be specific about that for each athlete, but generally you have, VO2, you would go through a phase like VO2 max that increases your ability to do aerobic stuff, and then there's, aerobic capacity, it just increases your aerobic capacity, and then after that you go into strength and endurance. This is very similar to a lot of things that we do. um, and with strength and endurance would be like big gear work and longer intervals, and then after that one's basically your race prep phase, which is very common with every athlete, is like you're going into more, um, you're just going out into race intervals. Like it's about, what's a good way to describe race phase? Like you should already know. It's like, if we're going for a play, what do they call like the practice play before they go? Like
Rehearsal?
yeah, no, not rehearsal. They call it something else. Like but that's kind of what it is. Like that's your rehearsal. Like you shouldn't be trying to get better. You should be going to refine. Like, if you're going through periodized training, like your VO2 max work, your big gear, your strength, your endurance stuff, that should be about getting at the most out of you that you can, becoming the best athlete. And then you move into the race prep. That's more about, it's more about rehearsing. It's more about getting things right the way you have them and dialing things in. And it's not about gaining a ton of fitness. It's about gaining a lot of confidence with what you have, and then how to use it and how to pace it, how to use your energy so you can execute it on race day. They aren't necessarily race, simulations, because I hate that word. Simulations are for pilots. This should be it should be about just rehearsals, like in terms of not the going through, the whole, long brick. It's getting used to longer intervals and seeing how your body adapts. Because we've talked about this before. When I say show your work, like, oh, I think I'm not doing these watts, for racing. I'm like, how'd you get that number? Oh, well, it's exactly 75% of my FTP. I'm like, well, in your long rides, you've shown you can do this, so we're going to use that. Like, you want opportunities for athletes to show you their longer periods of work with what they can actually handle, and it's about just sharpening that sword. And this is one of the things that I think Jan says. He says when you're going into Ironman racing, you also need to build trust, and this is something that we do a ton of. The biggest challenge was to trust the fact that you can actually get lots of benefits from intervals and not only training long. Like we do that a ton. We do negative split long runs. We do tons of intervals in our long bike rides. Like it's not just about going long and going slow and putting in a ton of hours. And so it's a fairly simple thing. It's sometimes hard to know when you should move on to the next one or when the appropriate time is, but it's always good, to kind of review that. And if you're not familiar with it, then we have a podcast talking about it. Go back, check it out, and then also just you can read this article. We'll link to in the show notes.
Mm. Here's one: manage the move to Ironman. People jump too quick.
I was going to say, manage the move. You mean, how do you manage the move to your next Ironman, or how do you manage the move from not doing an Ironman? Is what most age groupers should struggle with. I mean, that's every other like professional elite athlete, they do like Olympics and ITU for a while or a short course, and they finally build up to to doing things a little bit longer. There was something that she said in there. I can't remember where it is, but
the hardest thing for me when moving up from ITU was the bike, which I found it makes sense obviously, but I found it interesting was
her strength is as a runner, but coming from an ITU background, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, you got to be able to push watts for a longer period without the drafting. But I just think in general, I think that's really true in Ironman in general, is this whole idea of the bike kind of, yeah, people are like, the bike, I can do that. You know what I mean? I just think that they underestimate the bike in general. And it's that holding pace for, 112 miles is just like something that we just don't understand.
And then to want to run your best marathon afterwards, or even just a 70.3 or Olympic, like if you want to run your best, then you have to get off the bike feeling like you really haven't done that much. It's not about just, I can get through it. You want to just get through it and then expect to have an absolutely miserable run segment. Like, you can't just look at, I can probably get by, and then I'll just get on the run and be able to do my thing, man. Just do my runner, do my thing. Okay,
Right.
have fun. Let me know how doing your thing feels. It's going to feel terrible as you walk slowly aid station to aid station because you didn't put enough swim time, you didn't put enough bike time, and now you're expecting to still run your best. That's just not how it works. That's not how it works.
No. The next one was build run strength over speed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
we skipped one, balance in and outdoor training.
Oh, we did, yeah, balancing.
I mean, we discussed this way over nauseum. But hey, that's balance it, do what you can, utilize the best you can, but don't marry yourself to just indoor riding all the time. Next, which is my favorite, build run strength over speed. Quoting the Ironman champion, running for Ironman racing is more about strength and endurance than speed. I mean, hello, McFly. Like, yes, we say this all the time. It's not about how fast you go, it's about who slows down the least. You need strength work, you need hill work, you need long intervals like tempo or negative split runs. Like, you have to do that kind of work because that's what's directly going to simulate what you're doing in Iron Racing. Obviously, if you're doing more 70.3 stuff, or you're in a phase where you're doing 70.3s earlier in the year, then you're going to bridge to Ironman. Sure, absolutely, pop in some speed work. I'm not saying you hit the track 5 times a week, but yeah, you want to put in some speed work. But after that, it's like, I think she said this year I did a lot of hill reps with long intervals. I mean, and she ran an okay marathon basically to crush everyone's hopes and dreams. But yeah, you need that. It's how you periodize things as well. Like if they're in an early people in terms of moving things around with periodizing and going speed to strength to more race simulation is very, very similar, but it also depends on what the athlete is doing. If an athlete is coming from is doing an early season 70.3, or excuse me, early season Ironman coming off a huge long base year, then they're going to have to start like a little bit of speed work like last year, like if you do an Ironman Texas this year, and then change things up that way. But if you need to give up one thing, and most athletes, like, their speed work is they don't have enough cake to even worry about putting the icing on yet. Like, you got to have a huge cake to put the icing. The icing is speed. But you have to have a huge cake for that first. Most athletes are just trying to put a very thin, undecorative layer of icing on a very minimal, not even cupcake worthy base of cake. Like, build a gigantic cake and then worry about the icing. Don't try to slab a most triathletes unfortunately try to slab like a big thing of like, store-bought icing on top of a few crumbs of a cupcake, and then can't understand why it doesn't look like a cake. Like cake first, icing second.
Yeah, and because we always hear about strength work and weights and whatever, and I found it interesting that I think she said she uses her long uphill runs at a real low intensity for her strength work, um, and then on the long runs, the intervals like 1 kilometer race pace, 1 kilometer easy, kind of on and off kind of thing. I found that kind of interesting. It's like you don't have to be like running for 10 miles at interval pace all the time.
Yep.
Um,
Here's another great one. I love
you
this
love
one.
this one. I
I
knew it.
love this one, dude. It's called Race Sharp. My athletes never use races as a training session. When we go to race, we go there to show performance. Racing is also like a performance diagnostic. We prepare the race well, and we go to see if the performance is where we want it to be. I never see a race as a preparation. I mean, that's we've said this so many times when people like have that mentality of going in of, oh, it's just a training day, man, just a training day. You're 100% missing an opportunity. It's all about opportunities. Like you always, especially for triathletes who like to moan and groan about not seeing, performance gain in their weekly, Thursday 25-minute run, and why aren't things getting better? And then they go to a race. Like, yeah, I'm just kind of train through this one. To me, what it speaks of fear, or they just don't like to race. Like if you like to race, then taper and rip after it because you want to see where you're at, right? And then you can taper differently. You can make it a D race, a C race, but you race it. The point is to race it, right? The point is to go out there and do your best and focus and actually have an opportunity to see where you are. Not just because if you don't want to do that, then just go to packet pickup, pick up your packet, and then go home and have your free T-shirt. Like if that's all you want out of it, then just go do your long run on any other day of the week and save the money. But if you want to race, race it. Like that's like, and I'm saying, yeah, can you differentiate between what you want to do for the week, or you want to time it? I think like if you're looking at going through like big builds, I had um, an athlete that's doing Ironman Texas, like she had a half marathon this weekend and she got like basically zero taper. She was in a recovery week from Texas, or in the Texas build, so it kind of fit in well. But she swam the day before, biked, the day, and so there was really no taper. But you still go out there and you still rip it, and you still see what you have, because those can be huge confidence boosters going into your big event, is to see how things are progressing. And then you perform well, but then you have to perform under an objective thought process, or an eye, if you have a coach is saying, okay, well, like this athlete PR'd her half marathon by 12 minutes. And so if you want to look objectively, you think, okay, well, we barely had any taper. We're under heavy marathon load, or heavy Ironman training load, which most people tell you're going to get slower. And I just got faster. This is a great thing. Things are working. Let's build on that. Let's keep excited. Let's move forward. Okay, good. Or an athlete has an okay race, which also happens. You think, okay, well, we didn't taper at all. You were still able to hold pretty much where you thought you'd be able to do. And this isn't where you are in peak season. This is a good sign. Or, which also happens, the athlete has a very poor race. All right, let's dissect. Let's figure this out in the rehearsal period before we get to the actual time to go on stage and race for the big day. Let's figure it out now. Like that's another reason the athlete that we have racing, and I've got racing Puerto Rico this weekend. Hey, it's early in the season. We got Des Moines 70.3. We just started working. This is our first triathlon working together, and I'm like, I want to try some things out with this race. All I'm concerned about is your run, because I feel like this athlete in the past has really, really not underachieved, well, yeah, underachieved on the run, because I think his run fitness is a lot better than what it is. I think it's just poor pacing and poor strategy. So the goal for this is to figure it out. It's not his A race of the year, but it's still a race where you can figure things out and think, all right, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to execute, because now I'm going to execute. I'm going to work my race plan. That way, when I know I'm done, I know the numbers, the data, and the performance that I get from it is going to be good info. It's not going to be muddled by poor pacing and poor execution. I'm going to have all this information from all the training I've done, and now we're going to say, all right, because this athlete and I have trained less than what he trained before. And we're going to say, all right, well, this works for me. I can actually put in less hours and get a bigger benefit. Or we still need to tweak some things. We can go hard on the bike. We need to go a bit lower on the bike to be able to do the best run we can. Like, that's why you race. You race to stay sharp. You race to, like he says, race also like a performance diagnostic. Like, and if you go into a race that mentality, you're getting nothing out of it. You shouldn't expect any different than to get analyzed like a long run if you're doing like a half marathon. Just go and do a long run if you're not going to race it. Like, if you really want to get info, you do it at a race.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of variables. Might as
A
well
lot
work
of
on them. A lot of variables.
you might as well
And
get
that
it.
goes into, well, this, I guess it would go into the last one, but
Mm-hmm.
there's the next one is temper nutritional extremes. Jan Frodeno says, extremes never really work for me. The more I restrict myself, the worse I go.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, hey, you're not going to find me arguing any with that.
yeah, and
It's interesting how in a lot of these topics they've talked about not going full on one way or full away in the other. Like always staying kind of like steady and consistent and not yielding towards extremes, not just working on your strength and negating your weaknesses, or not going all in on your weaknesses and negating your strengths, and being patient and doing things long term. Like, oh my gosh, like all the sound stuff like common sense. It's just crazy. But you know what I should do? Maybe I should do the 6 fastest ways to become the ketogenic vegan, triathlon Olympic star in these next 28 minutes.
yeah,
Give me a break.
and then finally, develop your own triathlon psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Not letting the
Yeah,
pressure
well,
be too high on yourself. Concentrating on yourself and not others in training. That's that comparison we always talk about. Do your own thing. Think about race tactics and training situations.
yep. And that is basically what a coach is. Your psychologist.
Yeah.
Social worker, psychologist, occasional coach for triathlon, but that is what most coaches are. They are psychologists. That's what we do. We just can't prescribe medicine. We prescribe training. That is the only difference.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what it is. And to be honest though, like when they say like try your find your own tri psychology, Haug says that she worked with a sports psychologist. I think like first of all, like for whatever reason, like there's this huge gigantic stigma over like people that going to see a therapist or going to see a psychologist, like they've got like these real problems. Guess what? We all got problems. Guess what? We all got things we're dealing with. I think, generally speaking, the people that I know that are seeing therapists are generally more mentally health and better mental health than people who aren't. So, if you think of like psychology, if they're talking to somebody about a race or talking about how to wrap your brain around things, like do it. It's super helpful, and that is in a huge way what a coach is. Not, it's not their job description, but it's part of what they do. Is unlocking potential through getting over mental and emotional hurdles and obstacles. It's not about performance gain, it's about removing the clutter. And a lot of coaches do that. It's just part of it. If you really want an athlete to perform well, you have to get inside the nuts and bolts and figure out what's making things go haywire. Why are things performing well? Why is this athlete holding back? Is it a fear? And if it's a fear, why is it a fear? Who are they afraid of letting down? Are they afraid of letting me down the coach? Are they afraid of letting themselves down? And if they are afraid of letting those things down, why are they afraid of that? What's made them feel that way? Have they always felt that way? Like you have to ask those questions. Like they're not, and I think a lot of coaches just aren't comfortable asking about those kind of questions because they don't like to just talk about that kind of stuff. I don't have any issue with it, but if you really want an athlete to perform well, you have to understand not just their why, but like why they're wired the way they are. Like what happened? Like have you always felt this way? Have you had a bad experience with the coach? Like were your parents really hard on you growing up? Like we all have these. It's not baggage, just the stuff we carry on, like with life. Like it's just who we are. And if you want to understand how a person, like the person who's performing is a person, not just an athlete. They express their fitness through being an athlete or presenting as that type that day, but the person who wakes up is still a person. The person that's going to govern the decisions the athlete makes is still a human being who's lived on this planet for however many years, who's gone through, really tough times in their lives, who's had bad things happen to them, who's had bad experiences, who was, had high expectations before, who's really hard on themselves. Like you have to help athletes get through that. And for a lot of athletes, the biggest gains they can see is how they see and how they think about themselves. That's how you get to a point to where you can really express your best in training, is to be confident, to be comfortable, to understand that things are okay and that it's okay to miss workouts. Like that is why, like, that you see athletes perform so well, that are athletes, they play and they perform freely, and they're not, that's just that's part of it. And I think so if you're out there and you feel like you're really struggling with, why you just can't perform, or on race day things are so hard, well, you need to work on some of those mental and emotional blocks before you get it. Work on them in rehearsal, work on it before race day, and figure those things out. Do things, like 5Ks and 10Ks that make you feel uncomfortable. I've got an athlete that's going to race this weekend who's never raced in his entire life without a watch. Super accomplished athlete, like really accomplished, and because it's nervous, because he like that. So it's all right. Well, I want to see what you're capable of without it. So if we're going to practice being uncomfortable, we're going to practice doing something different, then let's still go to a race and race it, but let's just see what happens. Like, you want to be able to put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, because at some point it might be comfortable. And then that's when you can have these really big breakthroughs, because you don't feel like you have to have certain things to be successful. You can just be successful because of who you are.
Mm. Very well said, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, that pretty much, yeah, man. That pretty much wraps it up. I mean, that's your Ironman game plan right there.
Yep. Summarized by, the last 354 podcasts.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
not all,
that's
but
our podcast summary up to this date.
it is.
Um,
What
Good
else you got?
stuff.
Anything fun?
No, not really. Just looking forward to the future.
Hey, the future's bright, man. The sun's out. And it's gonna rain here all week, so whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, as always, we
fertilizer
appreciate you.
now.
Yeah, that's it, man. I know you got to aerate quick. But yeah, it is. We're always appreciative of everyone who listens. We appreciate if you want to be part of our closed Facebook group. You can hop in that. It's Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. Hop in there, answer a simple question. We'll let you in. Really awesome people in there with loads of experience and great intel. If you want to reach out to us directly, Mike is at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, my man.
All right, dude. For all things racing and camps, coaching, and community, c26triathlon.com.
Yep. Check it out. Thanks
All
for
right,
coming by, everybody.
March Madness, baby.
All right.